You might not know hardly anything about me. In fact, most of you would probably think I was born in 1861, died in 1865, because you say, well, you mean there was a life before that and there's a life after that? Of course there was. So I was born in Kentucky, June 3rd, 1808. I was the 10th child of Jane Cook Davis and Samuel Emery Davis. Now, my mother was almost 49 years old when she had me. So she gave me a middle name, a Latin middle name. In English it means finis. What do you think that means in English?
Finished. Done.
Finished. She's done. She was done having children. Well, by the age of 2, we moved out of about Fairview, Kentucky, and moved down to Louisiana temporarily. Now, I don't remember any of this. My father tried planting sugar in Louisiana. He was not a sugar planter. So he moved to Mississippi near a place called, what was that place called? Our plantation was called Rosemont, near Woodville. And we raised cotton. Now, my father never ever laid a hand on me. You know what that means, young man? He never laid a hand on me, neither did my mother. They never ever did that to any of their enslaved people. So you know, when you're younger growing up, you think that everyone lives the same way you do. Up until a certain age and you get out in the world and you start to change your mind. My father believed education was very important, just like you do. You think education's important, don't you? So at the age of 8, living in Mississippi wasn't even a state yet. Territory. He sent me up to Kentucky. Now, do you think I walked up there myself? No. I was taken by Major Hines, and we did stop in, come on in! We did stop in a little place called Nashville, the Hermitage, and met former General Jackson. Major Hines knew General Jackson from the War of 1812. Anyway, while I was at this school, it was Catholic. We were Baptist. How Protestant can't you get? Baptist. And I was one of the youngest students there, and you know how the older boys are, don't you? What do the older boys do to the younger boys? Come on. Bully them, pick on them, and so forth. So anyway, I hated the fact that we always had to have light on at night when I tried to sleep. I always had a candle. The older boys talked me into doing something. You know what that was? Blowing out the candle. Oh yeah, well, the priest of the school took me into a room and had a stick like this. Now remember what I said about my father and mother. He says, I want to know who blew that candle out. Now do you think I was going to tell him that the older boys talked me into that? I said, I don't know what the other boys did, but I'm the one that blew out the candle, and he liked me for my honesty, and he never did it. Now, I came back home to Woodville at the age of 10, and I didn't think my mother would recognize me. Because now I'm a 10-year-old, and I come walking up. There's about 8 to 10 steps up to that house called Rosemont. She come rushing down and hugged me so tight that I thought I was going to die, because, you know, kissing my head and everything and hugging me and everything. And you know, I believe, as again, my father said, education's very important. So I started going to Wilkinson Academy, and one day I came home angry with the teacher.
Don, you got a copy?
Because the teacher was going to make me do something I didn't want to do. You ever have a teacher do that to you? You. He said something like, you have to memorize something or whatever, and I didn't think I needed to learn. It might have been the preamble. You know how easy that is to remember. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure blessing and liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. I don't know what it was. All I remember is I didn't want to do it. So you know what? He sent me out in the fields for 2 days picking cotton. Now let me tell you something about picking cotton. When you're small, come up here. Here's the cotton. Go ahead and start picking. Look at that, he hardly had to bend over. Now as an adult, you had more bending over time. And you had to have so much of a bag by the end of that day to be weighed to see how productive you are. It only took me, how many days you think to change my mind about education? Come on, guess. Come on, guess. One more. 2. It took me 2 days to realize that's something I didn't want to do. And I thought education was important. Well, I ended up going to Jefferson College up at Natchez for a while, and then I ended up at Transylvania University in Lexington, Kentucky. And I thought I was going to be there 4 years, but I wasn't. Because my father, being age 52, my oldest brother was Joseph, was 24 years older than I was. 24 years older. So if he was 52 when I was born, that means he's 62 when I was 10. And 62 old to you? What? No, I said is 62 years old to you? Well, anyway. I wasn't there very long that my brother secured me an appointment to West Point Military Academy. Now, what's the difference between New York and Mississippi? Weather. Far different. How about ideas? Now think about it, ideas. Now, you have to pass the entrance exam at West Point. And my area that I was not very good at was mathematics. But those 3 people that quizzed me asked me questions that I knew the answer to. Because when you are taking an oral exam, they could ask you about anything. And there's a possibility you don't know one of the questions. I did. I got in there. Now, one thing about West Point is everyone has the same education. An engineering degree. And there's 4 areas of the Army you have to learn. Engineers, artillery, cavalry. Now, did I say cavalry? What did I say? Cavalry. Cavalry's where Jesus was crucified. And then what's at the bottom, young man? Your infantry. You're right, infantry. I was at the bottom. Now, within that 4 years, you're not even allowed to be sent home. The new superintendent there was very rough and developed a system called the demerits. And a system where you would be constantly rated in your class according to how you did in your classes. So, say for instance, you came in late, demerit. Boots weren't polished, demerit. Answered the wrong question, demerit. Smile too much, demerit. And so forth. Now, also there's a place that we weren't supposed to spend time at. It was Benny Haven's. It was a tavern nearby. And we could go there for spiritus liquors. Now, young man right back there, could you straddle that board facing that way? You know what I mean? Just take your right leg and pull it over and face that way. This is what Benny Havens taught us. This is my classmate. I could be drinking my beverage, and he could swear on the Bible that he never saw a fellow cadet drinking. Because we were not facing each other. And Benny taught us how to face the wall. Now, I almost got court-martialed. At the end of that 4 years, according to my grades and my demerits, graduated 28 out of 35. Now, if I would have been court-martialed because of the eggnog situation, I won't get into that, maybe tomorrow. But I graduated. Now, for the next 7 years, I'm going to go from a second lieutenant to a first lieutenant to a captain. Now, I don't know about you, But Army life can be extremely boring. Keeping the men occupied so they don't miss their significant other and possibly drink too much. Now, within that 7 years, I met a lovely lady. Her name was Sarah Knox Taylor. Boy, was she beautiful. Her middle name, Knox, came from Henry Knox, Washington's chief artillerist and his first Secretary of War. Anyway, she was beautiful. Her father, Zachary, Colonel, did not want his daughter to marry an Army officer because his oldest daughter already did, and of course his wife already did. And what do they have to do? Follow that officer from post, post, post. Well, you can't stop love. So what did I do? Resign from the Army. And now my sister Lucinda lived in Louisiana, and she said, now Jefferson, don't be coming down here after you two when you get married, don't come down here because there's a lot of malaria going on. Now, you know what happens when you're young? Oh, I caught your attention, didn't I? You make decisions that older people sometimes just do this. Guess what we did? We went down there anyway. And we both caught malaria. I could hear her singing in the other bedroom. We got married in June of 1835. Then 90 days almost to the day, she dies of malaria. Tears me up. It just tears me up. So, my older brother Joseph, as I said, treated me more like a son than an older brother. And he said, you know what? I got some land here. You can have some property. Now, I thought I secured that property from my brother. My brother will die in 1870, and guess what I find out after the war? That property wasn't mine at all. Because sometimes older brothers, older siblings look at their younger siblings like what? See what I'm saying? Even in our nation, sometimes we have a mudsill philosophy. Men, what's next? Women, what's next? Children. I learned that. I mean, when you're 10th child. Now, the person I'm named after, Jefferson Davis, now think about it, wrote, of course he was corrected by Franklin and John Adams, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. You know what that means? Rights can't be taken away. Then among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Now George Mason wrote basically the same thing and said the pursuit of property. But Jefferson already realized that our country, even after the Constitution, where slavery was the majority of the states, were slaveholding states. Now the North is gradually going to start to free. Now, in 1820, 6 years before his death, you want to come up here, young lady? He would say this. He didn't say this exactly. I'm going to put my own words in here. Slavery is like holding the wolf by the ears. If you let go, you got a problem. If you hang on, you got a problem. He saw that coming. Now, when I went and started Briarfield and learning the slave system, that whereas you go and live and think people were raised like you, kind of went down the drain. Because as I would go to these auctions, Joseph and I believed like George Washington did, whose opinion of slavery changed from the time he was a slave owner until almost his death. But there's a lot of Southerners that clung to it. So when we would go to auctions, could you two come up here? You siblings?
Yeah.
Come on up here. I'm going to tell you how I felt, and I'm going to tell you how other people felt. Let me ask you this. How many of you like a cat in the house? Raise your hand. Come on, raise them high. Raise them high. Come on, let me see. How many think animals don't belong in the house at all? There's a difference of opinion. We all have difference of opinion. So, Joseph and I patterned herself after George Washington. George Washington did not sell his overage. Now let me explain. How many say I have no idea what you just said? What's overage? Young man, could you come up here a minute? Yeah, you. Yeah, you came. Come on up here and stand here. You come on up here too, young lady. I'm going to explain overage and then I'm going to explain some other things. After the age of 55, what's he going to do for me? Probably not much at all. Who's going to take care of it? The master. Let's pretend she's less than 5. What's she do for me? Nothing. Who's going to clothe and feed her? I am. Now, how people treated them varied. When you're born into a system and certain things are accepted, you don't know any better. This is the way it is. It's the way your parents taught you. I told you about the mudsill philosophy. Washington and myself and Joseph would never sell our overage, and it sometimes hurt us financially. But we also, when we went to purchase, if we knew these 3 were siblings, we're going to keep them together. Other people didn't care. Also, there's people out there that would go to a stable and rent a horse and kick it in the chest, gouge his eyebrow out by being inebriated. Also, there's men out there that would be unkind to their wives and say in the Bible, the man's over the woman. Woman, you do what I say. Could the woman file for divorce and do anything about it too much? No. Or, anytime the child misbehaves, slap them across the face. We do that. We even had a system, believe it or not, where they would have their own court system. And sometimes, believe it or not, they would punish, the jury would punish someone worse than we ever would. As I said, keeping an overseer happy isn't easy. An overseer has a job of maintaining a certain amount of work going on at the time. And any time an overseer would abuse or anything or enslave people, they would be fired. And we were very productive. Now, we would see them as part of our family. In fact, my father, before he died in 1824, gave me James Pemberton, who became one of my closest friends, even though he was a slave. So let's take a peek at this. Now he is 26. Yeah, you come up here. He doesn't look 26. He looks 36. Okay, you come on up here now. 1850, there's a good chance he has a skill, he's competent. She has a skill that she's an excellent cook. Plus, she's about 21, 22. What could she do? Have what? Children. They could do one thing, pick cotton. That's it. Now, which one of these, this really gets to me what people will say. Which one do you think is the most valuable? The cotton pickers or the skilled labor? What do you think? No, absolutely not. These people right here, I could hire him out. In 1850, the bid might start at $1,200. You know what you could do with $1,200 in some of the South and some of the North in the cities? Buy a house and property. $1,200. She might be worth $1,300, $1,400 starting out because she has a skill and she also has the ability to have children. May all have a seat. Go ahead. Back to that. Now, within that plantation system, we're not talking about Joe Dirtkicker yet. How many know who Joe Dirtkicker is? He's that yeoman farmer. Just talking about the planter class right now. There's a difference. If you would say your investments, you would say the buildings on your plantation, including your home, the furnishings inside, the land, all the equipment, enslaved. Let me ask you something. Which of those 5 do you think that planter has the most investment in? You're right. You're exactly right. Slaves. So keep that in mind as I keep progressing. Now, 1843 comes along, December. Joseph thinks he's lonely and he needs a what? He needs a woman. He invites one of his best friends, William Howe, that came back. William's father was governor of New Jersey. They hardly ever developed that accent that I have. William and Margaret came down, got married, and Joseph was the best man, and their first child was named Joseph. Their second child was named Marina. Now, Marina was about 16 years old when I met her. I was about 33 and a half, 34. I know you're already doing it and saying, what the heck is he thinking? Now, you know, sometimes when you meet a woman for the first time, there's that look. You recognize that look, don't you? You recognize that look, don't you? You look. And I rode up there in that horse and everything, and I was supposed to tell her that, hey, I'm going to come by tomorrow and pick you up and take you to Joseph's Hurricane, because she was at one of my sister's home. Anyway, as we got to know each other, and I picked her up the next day, later on I find out she wrote a letter to her mother. And she said, you know what, I don't know whether Jefferson's a young man or an old man. Can't tell the difference. And when he states an opinion, he just assumes that everyone agrees with what he says, and there's times I don't. Marina was educated. Judge George Winchester educated her. But she said, besides that, Mother, he's a Democrat, because they were Whigs. She was a Whig. And you know the thing about Marina is, once I got to know her, I couldn't help but fall in love with her. I mean, men love, you're looking at me, don't you? Men love women that like to listen to you talk and act like they're really listening and interested until they marry you, and then they, oh. That always changes. You know, you ever notice that? It always changes once you get married. It's kind of like, but anyway, she loved that. And by the time she went back up to Natchez, where she lived, we were engaged. Now, the problem is, she went home and talked to her mother, and she said, Jefferson's only 2 years younger than I am. And every time I'd write her letters and say, I want to come up and visit, she got sick. And what does a man think every time the woman that you love, you want to visit, they're sick? So I finally went up there in February of '45. We got married in an Episcopalian church. And guess what I became? I went from a Baptist to a what? Take a guess. Episcopalian, how'd you know? Episcopalian. I don't have any problem with Episcopalians. Believe in Jesus the same way the Baptists do. Maybe they just shout a little bit more in the Baptist church. A little bit praise the Lord's. got married. Went on our honeymoon. One of the first places we went to is Louisiana. We got married in the Episcopalian church to see my sister. Of course, we had to visit Sarah Knox Taylor's grave. Rena is special. It takes a special woman to do that. We went to New Orleans and had a really great time, and by the time we got back to Briarfield, that home that James Peppers and I built wasn't good enough for her. She said, you know, these fireplaces look like something out of the Elizabethan era. You know when that is, like 1500s. Straw, you know, you can still see the straw and the filling. So we were going to build a new home. Now, Amanda's brother, or Amanda, my sister's husband died, and I wanted her to come and live in our new home. Yeah, that look. Sabrina says there's only one woman that can run a household. But I was going to have a wingo for Amanda. That did not work out. Now, I'm elected to the House of Representatives for 45, and I will be in the House from 46 to 47. Never stayed the full 2 years. Sabrina was very excited about going to Washington City. And I don't know if you know this. I think she thought that the streets were paved in gold. What she did find out, because we had to go up to Mississippi in a sled and so forth, because it's January 45, or 46. Snowy and everything, and women like to have comfortable places to use as necessary, and sometimes it wasn't that way. It's about frozen time, those are feet. We arrive in Washington, and you know what she finds? Manure all over the streets. Dusty, dirty, unfinished monuments, empty lots full of trash. Cow manure, horse manure, sheep manure, goat manure, dog manure, chicken manure, hog manure. And then, you know, that winter time, when you cross those streets, you have to figure out, if your boots smell, you know there's a problem, that you stepped in it. If they don't smell, you don't have a problem. Well, anyway, during that House of Representatives, a junior House member is not supposed to talk much, make speeches, because they're new. They're sitting back, they're supposed to, because it's only a 2-year term. Maybe your second year you can speak. But I knew there was going to be an incoming war with Mexico. Because in 44, I supported that Democrat James Knox Pope. So anyway, I gave a speech in the House and I said, you know what, the military should be making this decision. Not a blacksmith or a tailor. Now, you know who was from Tennessee in the House of Representatives that used to be a tailor? His name was Andrew Jack Johnson. Nobody's ever heard of Andrew Johnson. He instantly didn't like me because of that. I thought he was a plebeian and he thought I was from the planter class aristocracy and he didn't like me. I tried to apologize to him. Well, 20 years later, that's going to catch up with me. So anyway, we do have a war with Mexico. What happens is Polk sends troops down where our soldiers should be. Now, Santa Anna, who was elected maybe 11 times to be president, and those poor Mexican people had to put up with him, he said the border was the Nueces. We said it was the Rio Grande. So of course Polk's going to put soldiers between the Nueces and the Rio Grande. And guess what's going to happen? Yes, that's exactly right. War. Of course, later on, some congressmen from Illinois wanted to know the exact spot where the war started. Got a nickname Spotty, but I won't mention who that was. That was in Mexico. Now, I told Karina, I said, I'm not going to go back in the Army. Told her that several times. Guess what I did? I went back in the Army, and I served in Mexico, got shot in this left foot. That's why you see me limping once in a while, just to heal. But at one point, I had to go back and settle a dispute between Marina and my older brother, Joseph, who believed a woman should be seen and not heard. And Marina didn't like just sitting there saying nothing. she gave her opinion, so I had to settle an argument. Now, whenever I got close to my older brother, I'd get distance from Marina. When I'd get close to Marina, then Joseph would go off. It's like I don't have to pick who I get along with. So I did serve, come back, and believe it or not, I got the Mississippi legislature put me in the Senate. Placed me in the Senate. Now, 1847, 1851, I ran for governor of laws. Now, some of you are saying, what about children? Yes, children. I lost, I came back, and Marina said, this is the end. We're going to stay at Briarfield and have a plantation. It wasn't to be. The election of 52, Franklin Pierce from New Hampshire, I met him up in the Mexican War, asked me to be his Secretary of War. And Marina, of course, said, you need to say no. I said no about 3 times. He invited me up to his inauguration. Guess what I said then? But we had a child in 52. His name was Samuel Emery Davis, named after my father. As I was Secretary of War, less than 2 years later, he will die of a fever. 55, we have Margaret. 57, we have Jefferson Jr. 59, we have another boy. There's an argument. I wanted to name him Joseph. She wanted to name him William after his father. Who do you think won? No, I did. His name was Joseph. Now, Joseph eventually is only going to live to be a 5-year-old because he is going to fall off the veranda on April 30th, 1864, fall down, crush his skull, break his legs, and Marina and I are both at the customs house in Richmond and came to see our little baby boy die. I could then feel what a lot of mothers of the Confederacy or sisters felt, or wives felt when they lost their husbands by losing that child. So the 1850s were very turbulent, and I hope you stick around because Mr. Lincoln and I are probably going to discuss that. But one of those things, the Compromise of 1850, at this time, there are 15 slave states and 15 free states. That means the Senate has, right? Some people say, well, I don't know how many senators are in for each state. 2. Okay, good. You knew. You knew too, didn't you? You know now. So anyway, California wants to come into Union as a free state. Now, what southern state was ready to come in as a slave state? None. So what they did was a compromise. About killed my father-in-law, former father-in-law. But did. Died on July 8th. They gave us a fugitive slave law. Now, the problem with the fugitive slave law is that now these people up north aren't involved helping these southerners get back their slaves. Now, I want you to think about a scenario that I read about. What do you think happened? You two married? She has a link on the Underground Railroad. He is a judge in town. He comes home to surprise her one afternoon and discover 2 enslaved runaways at his house. You love each other, don't you? You put him in a big predicament, didn't you? What did he do? I don't know what he did. I just read about it happened. You got to uphold the law. If your wife says this is wrong, but you still got to uphold the law. That's what the fugitive slave law did. Now, what time is it? My watch is really slow.
3 minutes.
Is it really? And I didn't even hardly, but I'm going to get to 61. I'm going to get to 61. Now, I hope all of you come back tomorrow, because I'll continue. But let's put it this way. I get elected senator again by the Mississippi legislature, March 5th, 1857. The day I step out of office, March 4th, the day the Dred Scott decision happened. How many think Supreme Court is the highest court in the law in the land? And how many think their decisions are final? People are going, they're not final, are they? No, they're not. They can be reversed. Even though some people try to tell me they can't be. They haven't. Dred started suing in 1847 because his owner, John Emerson, took him all over the place into free territory for several years. Since he lived in free territory, should he be free? According to Dred and his attorneys, what would be the answer? Yes. It goes to the Supreme Court. Chief Justice Roger Taney from Maryland says, Dred, you're not even a citizen of the United States. You can't sue. And so, to the South, because his wife wanted to sell him, because she was a widow and she needed the money. Now, once that Supreme Court made a decision, the southern states thought, this is the way it is. Now, I'm going to tell you real quick, I was not a secessionist. Didn't even believe in secession. To a point. Now, when my state secedes, what do you think they're going to do? Call me home. They did. Tennessee withdrew too later, and do you think Johnson went home? No, he stayed in the Senate, representing the state that was in the Confederacy. I'm going to stop right there, and some of you stick around and make sure you have, we're going to have a press conference, and this young man over here from the Harper's Weekly, Harper's Ferry, that's a nice place to visit, believe me. John Brown, I need to talk about that. We'll probably bring that up. He's going to have a panel of us, or ask some questions to us. We're each going to answer. It's going to be very interesting. Do we want to give him a little bit of a break then, Mr. and Mrs. Lincoln? And
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion's carried.
Please don't leave. This is going to be good.
Save your seats, mark your seats so that nobody takes them. Turn the boards over and they'll put your name on it.
Who are you with? Well, good for you. I'm glad you come. So you took a lot of notes. I didn't tell you anything you didn't already know. Which one? Oh, Biloxi.
For your daughter.
When did you see that?
Last year.
You saw the news.
Oh, it's a fine day it is.
Yes and no. Well, it's a long story. Davis got
Miss it, it's just right down the road.
No.
I don't think we want to hear too much.
Some voicemail.
Confederates.
We don't know yet.
Rita said,
She's supposed to call back this afternoon and we first good news. Call back and don't worry about it. So that, we don't know.
can you see what I'm saying?
It will,
They want to believe this.
hey, Sarah,
He was
whatever will be.
Train the boys
I think the point in life, I don't get too excited about things.
I don't like it.
just forget it. That
I
happened.
don't want to like too small that I fall over and people go, oh, he's dead. You got the food tomorrow morning.
I'm only asking because we have to go to see him.
Yeah, you want to go St. Gilbert's?
No running.
I'm asking because a couple weeks ago we were at Legends and we had done that event before.
This voice of authority, this is what you were like.
People listen to you.
So I've been there last, they moved it up.
What time are we supposed to start?
This is fortunately someone here.
Yeah. St. Gilbert's like a 5 on Saturday.
Oh, so I
Regular 6 o'clock on Sunday.
Drop. Got it.
I think it was every
Yeah,
we did our team last year. And now we're having youth group
They don't want to
every
leave.
Sunday, so it became a regular mass, and then we're gonna.
I see myself as a
So it's
historian first,
Yes.
Good birds at it.
Came all the way from Ohio.
I was very impressed with the, I thought we got the, but, the man who was playing Jefferson Davis, he made me believe he was Jefferson Davis. Very excellent job.
Crankety old man.
Oh my
I
gosh.
was gonna say, David, you're too personable. You know, too friendly.
There's some reasons behind all that stiffness. Laura, did I give you one of my cards yet?
I will take it.
You guys have one already.
We have a couple. One for us and one to hand off to anybody else who asks.
Looking good.
At least the rain.
Yeah.
Not